And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. You're tuned in to Tapped Out. Hosted by Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine. Only on the BetQL Network.
Good Saturday evening, wherever you're checking us out on the BetQL Network with producer Jake Noviker and my co-host Brendan Tobin. I am the sports machine, Sean Levine, and we've got UFC action tonight. We're going to talk about it. We're going to try to make some money, and we've got some guests and some fun along the way. As I welcome in my co-host Brendan, Sean Strickland, back in the octagon again for what seems like, I don't know, the 10th time this year. He's a favorite tonight against MAGOMEDOV, minus 150 for Strickland, plus 125 with BetMGM for the underdog MAGOMEDOV. Can Sean Strickland win again?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, Sean Strickland is, one of those guys. He just seems to know how to go out there and win as long as he doesn't make, a critical mistake like he did against Pereira. But the guy's really, really good. He is, just has a very simple plan all the time to just go basically straight down the middle, a lot of 1-2s, and find his way to victory. The guy's a very, very good fighter. Not the most exciting fighter in the world. I think his press conference is sometimes more exciting than his fight style. But, taking on a guy tonight in his UFC debut, it's still a very good chance for Strickland to get his hand raised and get himself back into the contention picture.
Are you surprised that Strickland's favored at minus 150 right now at BetMGM? Because it feels like he definitely has the name recognition in this fight. Yeah,
I was going to say, no, I don't find that surprising when you're going up against Abus, who's going, new to people, burst on the scene, getting himself in a UFC, main event, which is really cool for him. But yeah, it's you're getting introduced to the new stage, and I think Strickland, everybody, he's not only going to garner a lot of attention because of his fight weeks, but because people know him, very active. So yeah, not surprising to find Sean Strickland in this spot right now. It's just, I think the thing we're all going to watch for is, can Strickland do something that maybe puts an exclamation point on some things tonight, because it feels like, usually fight week is almost more entertaining than the fights themselves.
Fights are going down tonight in Las Vegas, and it's the return of Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee's a really interesting character where he talked a big game and he was kind of fun to watch and he kind of had a fun look, and then he didn't start winning fights for a while. And when everybody kind of got off Kevin Lee, the promotion cut him. But he's back tonight against Fakhretdinov. Can Kevin Lee get right back in the win column?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one because, his last fight was against Diego Sanchez down at a warehouse in Miami for Eagle FC. And then Eagle FC just kind of up and he was going to be basically the face of their promotion. And then they just kind of up and folded. So it is going to be interesting to see what we have left in the tank for Kevin Lee. He is getting a chance to be at 170. He's been a guy that's, been kind of up and down, where he's gone welterweight, lightweight. I think he's more comfortable at welterweight, but neither one has really been that great to him. And I don't know how much, credit you do want to give him for beating a pretty old and over-the-hill Diego Sanchez in his last fight. But he did get back in the win column. Fakhretdinov, tough challenge for him to come back. I think that this is one of those things where it's almost like you're trying to give Fakhretdinov the name recognition of beating a guy like Kevin Lee. But again, yeah, a guy who is very good at promoting the sport, very charismatic. I think that's why we're always interested to see what it can be. And also is a guy that at one point was fighting for the interim lightweight championship, was fighting Tony Ferguson, was, on the up and up as one of the best probably prospects in the sport. And then it just kind of all fell off a cliff for him. Not losing to bums. I mean, losing to very, very good guys. And, Tony Ferguson and Ali Quinta and RDA and Charles Oliveira. So these are not, schlubs that he was out there losing to, but still, you got this. I think you would agree, Sean, when, he was fighting for the interim title years back, that this was going to be a guy that we'd see plenty of. And it's still young, still has maybe some time to get some things right. He's, was going through a lot of trainers, found a home down here in South Florida, over at the Kill Cliff with, Gilbert Burns and them boys. But I don't know, man, this is kind of a do or die, it feels like, for him.
What a weird career it's been so far for Kevin Lee. To think that he's found his way back into the UFC octagon. He used to keep Khabib's name in his mouth. And then you're right. Then he went to Eagle FC, and now he's back in the UFC. It's just, yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing him back tonight. He's in. Henry Cejudo's out of UFC 292. He was supposed to fight Chito Vera. So what now? I was talking with producer Jake about this off air yesterday. Chito's already fought Corey Sandhagen, lost, so that's not going to happen. You would think, okay, Sean O'Malley, but Sean's got his fight booked against Aljamain Sterling. It can't be Merab because he's on the shelf right now because he's injured. I mean, so what do they do with Chito Vera? Is it Piotr Jan? Is there somebody that I'm not thinking of? Like, what happens now that Henry Cejudo's out of this fight?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you, man. That's a great question as to what you do next for him, because this was kind of that high publicized guy that could get him back. I think in everybody's eyes in contendership, we're always talking about this bantamweight division that there's a lot of jockeying for position to keep everybody's mind fresh on you. I think, of course, he wants to get back up there just in the event that Sean O'Malley wins, because, you know, as we said, that's kind of an easy ride to the title right there with their history. I don't know what he does. I think that, you know, he's got to try and if I'm him, I try and just find somebody that can fight that night in Boston, just because I think that's a huge thing to be lined up right there with the champion on the same night. You get a chance to get on the mic. And honestly, it almost could be a blessing in disguise for him, because we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, that this felt like a very tough matchup for him, just in regards to he's naturally a slow starter. You're going up against a guy who can grind out wins. He's been to the top. He has different ways to win. I found it to be a pretty tough matchup for him against Henry Cejudo. So maybe he can get somebody. If he does get a Piotr Jan and can do something, who seems like, yeah, on the bit of the downslide, but I think still has a lot of respect in people's minds, especially that, you know, his last close fight against Sean O'Malley. If he could do something like go out there and head kick him and finish him, that I think could make a statement, and then you could kind of get out there and do your thing on the mic. But huge bummer for him. Huge bummer to not see Henry Cejudo, because you think about Cejudo, dude, like, I mean, this guy just came off the shelf. Is this a good thing? Like, how easy is it going to be for him to come back from something like this?
Well, you and I were both saying when he came back that he looked a little stuck in the mud. After getting a championship fight right away, it's like, okay, maybe they fast-tracked him. Maybe he should have had a fight to get there, and obviously that being in hindsight. The excitement level for guys like you and I, whatever, with Henry Cejudo. So that's kind of still where I am. And obviously I don't wish any sort of injury upon the guy, but I'm curious to see who the guy is that Chito fights now, because as you said, he's probably one highlight away win and one Sean O'Malley win away from fighting the Sugar Show for the belt. And I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. So I have absolutely no problem with however that thing shakes itself out. We do have some fight announcements from Dana White announced on Mexican Independence Day. How about this one? Kelvin Gastelum versus old rat hat, SHAVKAT Rakhmonov. What's that do for you?
Oh, it's a fun fight. I'm a little surprised. It almost speaks to me that, like, SHAVKAT, they're having a tough time finding him opponents, because, you know, I feel like if you're SHAVKAT, you're probably thinking to yourself, hey, really? Like, Kelvin Gastelum? Like, he wins one fight and that's who I got to go against. But
he's always game, though. I don't really care about rankings with Gastelum. Like, I think about not necessarily like the Till fight or his last fight or fights. Like, I think of the Izzy fight, and it's like, all right, if they want to slide that guy in, I have no problem with it.
Look, yeah, he's a credible guy, and I think that you probably look right now. You know, just looking over the top 5 in welterweight, we don't really know what's going on with Usman. Colby's obviously going to fight Leon. Bilal, we think. Bilal maybe doesn't want to take that fight because he's pretty much cemented as the #1 contender. Gilbert Burns is injured. Hamzat, who knows what the hell's going on with him. So there's not a lot of options out there for SHAVKAT. This is a guy who certainly has a credible name. He can go out there, maybe do something awesome. But I do think, as you've said, you know, Kelvin Gastelum, even when it looks like he's down, he can come up with the surprise. So, you know, a guy with a lot more experience on the big stage than SHAVKAT, maybe he can go out there and surprise the people. But I would imagine the odds are going to be pretty stacked in SHAVKAT's favor for that fight.
Oh, I would think he's going to be like a -280, maybe even a 3-1, which might even, like, depending on how heavy of a favorite he is, you could always talk me into putting some money on Kelvin Gastelum. I mean, he's lost a couple of kind of weird, quick fights, but most of the time, he's definitely a game fighter, and you've got some live money. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine, talking a little fighting. and win a little money here on the BetQL network. Also that night, Mexican Independence Day, Dana announced Valentina is back versus Alexa Grasso. Who you got in that one?
Man, I think I'm going to ride with Alexa Grasso. Valentina is, awesome, and she has certainly had a long reign, and I typically go the path of if a champion who's been long reigning loses their belt, I'll typically give them the benefit of the doubt the next time around. I did that with Amanda Nunes against Juliana Pena. I did that with Izzy against Alex Pereira, even though, Pereira had his number in a lot of sports. I just thought that, he was having a good fight up until that point. Alexa Grasso, I just feel like there's a couple things. One, Valentina looked a little bit on the downslide. We've talked about this. And then I just think Alexa Grasso can get better, man. I feel like the way that she pulled out that victory in that one, I didn't feel like she was someone who just pulled a rabbit out of her hat. I felt like she had just a good path to victory to finish off Valentina. I think she could do better the second time around. And then you think about, what it's going to be like having the emotions of that weekend. That's going to be huge for her. So I like Alexa Grasso going into this one.
How come when Amanda lost, we were both like, it's a fluke, it was a bad night. But now when Valentina loses, we go, all right, she's starting to leak a little bit of gas here. Is it because we've seen back-to-back fights where she didn't look great? What's up?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think that's fair. I think it's the idea that the way Amanda lost that fight too was just like, oh wow, that just it was almost like somebody didn't show up in the cage. Yeah, with the Valentina, I didn't think she looked like a bad Valentina Shevchenko. I just thought that Alexa Grasso maybe looked a little bit more at her level than people expected. And then, that was going a couple fights back now where Valentina just hasn't looked quite the same. She could make us all look like idiots this next time around and, do some kind of crazy wheel kick to put, Alexa Grasso in another dimension. But I don't know, man. I felt like with her, there was a little bit of a downslide after what has just been an incredible title reign for her.
Doesn't take too much to make you look like an idiot, my guy. Sean Brady out versus Jack Della Magdalena. Kevin Holland's thrown his name in the hat. Doesn't this feel like, all right, we'll take you? Like this is what Kevin Holland does. This is why the UFC loves him.
Yeah, this is why everybody loves him. That he'll step in and then say that he'll fight. He'll keep his fight with Michael Chiesa a few weeks later. Like
he will.
We talked. We did our BMF draft last week. Kevin Holland, maybe honorable mention, maybe building a resume to get into the wing there of all time BMS. But yeah, man, that's why everybody loves him. He's a guy that'll go out there and maybe lose a fight to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson because he chooses not to do takedowns. He's a man of honor, Kevin Holland. So that's why we all love him. And if he is able to do that, if he could do these two fights in that short amount of time, I think his fanfare will increase even more.
Did you mean future champion Wonderboy Thompson? Is that who you're talking about?
Possible, dude. Listen, don't rule it out. A couple injuries shake his way. I'm telling you, him versus Leon, that's a good fight right there.
The NMF himself, Wonderboy Thompson. Alex Volkanovski was talking a little Ilya Topuria. I don't think he's looking past Yair Rodriguez, even though it feels like the odds makers are. But damn, I'd love to see Volk fight Ilya Topuria. That'd be a banger.
Oh, my God. Yeah, the way Topuria looked last week, we were talking about it with his performance against Josh Emmett. Tremendous. It just felt like he had so many different ways to go get the win against Josh Emmett. Could have argued that fight could have been stopped after 4 rounds, the way that Josh Emmett's face looked like hamburger meat. Credit to him to show that kind of toughness. But Topuria was a monster, dude. He's looked like a monster. The way that he diced through Bryce Mitchell like it was nothing. It's going to be interesting. You always have one of these super prospects that don't look like they have a weakness anywhere. And Volkanovski, that's the ultimate guy with no weakness. Now, the only thing that, as you said, that he's got to worry about right now is Pantera coming up next week. But I don't know, man. It is crazy to feel like no one has given Yair a shot, which is kind of crazy. The guy has a lot of tricks in his bag against Volk. I don't know if that goes back to just like the Frankie Edgar fight. Everybody's just got that in their mind. They think Volk's going to take him down and turn him into mincemeat. But man, Yair's he's so tricky. You got to be careful the way you go about him. And I don't know if this is going to be an easy one for Volk next week.
He's minus 400, so the odds makers think it's going to be a walk in the park. You can get Yair at plus 330. We got like a minute and change left. Obviously, the Conor McGregor Michael Chandler fight is maybe going to happen. I would say at this point I'm 50-50. I have no idea. At what point, though, if you're Michael Chandler, do you move on? Because it feels like you have to hang on to this thing as long as you possibly can, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, everybody wants that red panty night. Everybody wants the big payday. But I do feel like, it's got to be a bit annoying to sit here, and it feels like Conor's almost just playing this publicity game, like just stay in the limelight to go about there and get headlines and all that stuff, whether they're good or bad. I'm sure he'll probably give it till the end of the year, but man, I mean, who's even sure if he's going to be back by the end of 2023?
I just keep waiting. I don't care how long it takes. I don't fight anybody until then. Also, you could lose the fight, and if you lose the next fight, then you don't get the Conor fight. It's a crappy situation if you're Michael Chandler. We'll talk about it coming up next with Big Marcel. Marcel Dorff joins the show. You're locked into the BetQL network.